everyone. This is William del Pilar.
And I'm Big John.
Latino.
Oh, he's the conservative Latino, but I am Big John.
Girthy Big John, girthy.
Okay, girthy, but I'm
John, people, John's done some film work.
I have.
We haven't uncovered what he did in the 70s.
I
have. How you doing, John?
I'm fine. How are you, William?
Yeah, pretty good. I understand it was date night. You have a good time?
Had a good time. Finally got some time to ourselves, take the missus out for a nice dinner. So yeah, had a good time, good date night. And you're a bachelor these days.
Right now I am. The better half is dealing with some family matters back home. And the single life of being a bachelor is pretty crappy when my best gig is looking at the kitchen and going, damn, I did a good job cleaning that up. And so tomorrow is an even bigger day. It's laundry day.
That's what you get for kicking your spouse out of the state for a while.
Oh gosh, I miss already. My poor dogs. I'm a dog guy. I have 3 dogs. And a little foo-foo dog. And I'll tell you this, John, and I'm sure you're the same way. You don't have a dog, so you probably look at people who own foo-foo dogs like I used to. Like, what the hell? Do you see that little? And then when you're like, well, it's like you just want to smash it like a bug until you.
I did. I have. I have smashed those annoying pets. Like I've drop kicked them across rooms. I'm not a pet person. I'm not pet friendly at all.
When I first started dating my wife, I used to make fun of our first one. I said, I'll put that dog across the room. But here's the thing about a foo-foo dog. When they talk about dogs, man's best friend being dogs, you see the lab and things like that. But the foo-foo dog, it blows any other dog out the water because that dog is literally part of your hip with nothing but love for mama or papa. And people don't understand it. I don't expect you to, but until that actually happens, when you see this little creature who's, like you said, we joke around punting it, kicking it, doing whatever, because it is that defenseless. You do nothing but fall in love, And my little foo-foo dog's not eating now that the better half went. I think she's had 1 meal in 3 days. So I'm going to go to the vet tomorrow, get some new dog food, and hopefully see what happens. But that's the life of a bachelor, people. And I probably just taken up 1.5 minutes of your life.
It sounds painful. You couldn't pay me enough to be a dog owner or a pet owner or anything owner.
Well, let me make my life sound even better.
What's that?
We are technologically connected, are we not? So what happens when you're a bachelor? Your highlights your dog and cleaning the house, and then the internet goes out. It's I don't know what our download is, but I don't like using that for the hotspot except for short occasions because it never fails. Eventually we get this email message, it's like you're still connected, but you're at a crawl. So I went back to old school. 1940s and 50s with old time radio on the phone and listen to a classic radio story. And you know what I've always appreciated about that, John, which is lost in today's society. And fans of Zork know what I'm talking about. It's the mind, the creativity.
It's theater of the mind. Hey, yeah.
Exactly. In fact, there was one of my favorite shows was called Imagination Theater. But we're babbling now. We're about 4 minutes in.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. People don't mind hearing this. It shows them our personality. So that's okay.
It shows that I have no life. No, I'm kidding, people. I love
that too.
Life. No regrets at all, except for, okay. All right, Big John, we've got a simple story today, but the reason I chose this story, because it is a little light in basics and what happened, but it shows a couple of underlying themes. We'll get the libertarian take on free speech in federal government or public or private, and the current political battle of what institutions are teaching, what they're forcing on people, not just institutions, but what society's trying to force us to say. Political speech, I guess is what you can say. And that is the Meriwether versus Shawnee State. It sounds like a freaking old trailblazing America battle. Then we got what's been on everybody's mind the last, month? And what is that?
Elon Musk buying Twitter.
It's got to be Elon Musk. Yeah. And we're not going to talk about it here, John, but one thing I do want to delve into eventually is because it talks about what we were talking about off screen. Musk is not a friend to either liberals or conservatives. He's been on both sides of the aisle. He's more libertarian in my eyes. And so I actually heard somebody call him a libertarian the other day, say, no, Musk is libertarian, people. Get over yourselves. Talking to conservatives. The problem with conservatives is it's like who's the congresswoman, the she's not a congresswoman anymore, Gabby too.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Tulsi Gabbard. It's like conservatives are like in love with her. I'm like, y'all know she's still a Bernie Sanders leftist. You just agree on her on a couple of topics, and because she didn't get on board, they're canceling her. So now you love her. I was like, you can support your enemy because we're not fighting over an enemy or an ally. We're fighting for our belief system.
Right.
But that's how conservatives are. Then we get to something I like to call, but I will not call it what I want to call it, but just there's certain things you just don't say segment. And that is Dan Campbell, dumbass or not. And Big John will be an arbiter here because based on my life experiences, he's a dumbass.
Fair enough.
All right, John. First of all, is Nicholas Meriwether versus Shawnee State University. I'll set the stage here.
Sure.
Meriwether is a professor at Shawnee State, 25 years teaching philosophy, religion, ethics, and the history of Christian thought. Right. Now, before people freak out and just see religion, I've taken a couple of these classes in college, as I'm sure you have, John, and it's done from a very analytical sense. But
even if it weren't, it's an elective course anyway. So
right. So the point is, it's not Jimmy Swagger.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Hallelujah. Yeah, it's not that. Okay, so
it's not Liberty College.
Yeah. And even Liberty College isn't like that unless they have their big gatherings. Come on out, people. We've taken your parents' money. Now we want yours. Right. I shouldn't say that. Where's Lightning at?
Hey, I went to a Jesuit university.
Oh, that's right. John has more experience than I do. I stopped going to catechism, so I never even completed it. Yeah. So technically, I guess I'm not a full-fledged Catholic. Shawnee State, with 3,000 students, instructed instructors to refer to students using their gender identified pronouns. Meriwether sued the school in 2018 after being disciplined for refusing to use students' pronouns. Now, that's the actual basics of the case, which again is ironic because we had this discussion offline in terms of this is the basics. It's how do we get there? Meriwether was asked to address a biological male in court listed as Jane Doe. Right. I don't think of that,
which is hilarious. Yeah,
exactly. So Meriwether was asked to address a biological male with female pronouns in class. The student identified as Jane Doe described as female, but the sex at birth is male. Per the lawsuit, Meriwether told Doe doing so would violate his conscience and sincerely held religious beliefs, specifically that his belief that God created humans as either male or female. What he's saying is, hey, my belief says a man and a woman. So this would force him to communicate views regarding gender identity that he does not hold and that he does not wish to communicate. That's the gist of his side, but there's a caveat we'll get to in a few moments. The university determined he effectively created a hostile environment. So he went and called this male who'd been called by his name for let's say he's 18, just for the last 16 years of his life. Maybe the last couple of years he's decided to change it. So so he effectively created a hostile environment for students and placed a written warning in his personal file threatening corrective action. Now, I think what helped Professor Meriwether was this caveat. I called it the no compromise as I was reading it up. Meriwether, who addressed students, and I'm sure you've had professors, I've had professors also, they address you by Mr. or Miss. I found that odd the first time, but then notice a lot of professors do that. I think it's their way of respecting you. He did offer a compromise of addressing Doe by only her last name without the gender-based title he used for the other students. So he was willing to compromise. And I guess that's one thing that attracted me to this case today, John, is the fact that compromise seems to be a taboo word. It's like nobody wants to even look at it. We've become so tribal. Doe declined the offer. The professor claims that the student threatened him and compared his refusal to use female pronouns to someone calling the professor a C asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I don't know if that's a CU or CO word.
Yeah, and what's strange to me is that you feel compelled not to even say the words in the context of repeating them. So,
I'm trying something new, John. I'm trying to lay the case out as it goes out.
No, I understand. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, actually, that is kind of how I want to lay it out. Just because with in the fabric of society, to me, this is an important case. This is about the kids, and this is about the inmates running the asylum. You have to have order in a civilized world. If not, we can turn back to barbarism. And to the other side, they really don't want that with people who actually know how to shoot versus look at Hollywood and go, that's how I shoot a gun. I'm being a bit facetious, but you get my point. Yeah. There you go. There you go. As it goes that way, it hits everything. But, actually, I'm digressing, but 20 years ago or something, I read a statistic. It's in the book. It was written by that super statistician, and it was like a bestseller for years and years. But anyway, he said that the one stat was that most deaths in the ghetto to the innocents are because these guys can't hit the side of a barn.
Right. Yeah. I think that might have been Freakonomics, but
yeah, that's it. Freakonomics.
Yeah. Well, that's been. Well, what's interesting about this case in particular is that it touches on. What was that?
Fill us in on the rulings. What were the rulings here?
Yeah, so this case basically got overturned, and it got remanded back to the lower courts, and it got for the professor, But what's interesting to me, there's so many moving parts to this, but so this is reminiscent of what happened to Jordan Peterson, the famed lecturer and hero of the right.
God right now.
Yeah, hero of the right. Even though he doesn't describe himself as such, but what's interesting to me is, and I love Jordan Peterson, honestly, I'll disclose that. I think he's a great thinker. I think he gets misrepresented a lot, but what I like about him is he's a very thoughtful man. And when you ask him a question, sometimes he goes silent for a minute or two.
He's thinking.
And it becomes very uncomfortable until you realize he's doing what a real scientist does, which is if he doesn't have the answer right away, he'll stop and think about it. He won't just throw words out there. He'll say, well, let me think about this. And when he tells you something like, I've thought about that question for about 6 months now. And he's not, he's not BSing you. He has thought about it for 6 months, right? People like that, you should always take seriously, even if you disagree with them, because they have very well thought out positions, even if you don't like the conclusion.
Well, John, would you say that individuals like him have positions so well thought out? The reason we should listen to him is because he's putting up blocks to what we believe in, and by not listening, you're just refusing not to see the truth. Whereas if you do listen, you can. Well,
you should listen for the very simple purpose that that's the essence of free speech and free debate, right? Because
that too.
His positions are very well thought out. Now, they could be false in the sense that maybe he started out with false assumptions, right? That's always a possibility. But his
logic, the leftist in him.
Yeah, well, it could be the leftist in him, it could be the Rube in him, whatever, But the point is, it's like he could start out with false assumptions, right? But the fact that he's very well thought out should at least challenge your own beliefs, even if they're opposite. So in Canada, there was some sort of law passed that forced people to use preferred pronouns. Gender preferred pronouns, right?
That's right.
So it was a case where the Canadian government was forcing professors to say, oh, what's your preferred pronoun? And some dude says, yeah, call me she, like the professors were forced to do that. So what Jordan Peterson refused, that's what made him famous, actually. He refused to do it.
That's right.
And he said never in English common law, because remember now, here's another key distinction that Americans often forget. I heard a lot of these right-wingers who seem to think Canada and the US are the same. There's no First Amendment in Canada. They don't have a First Amendment, right?
Honestly, John, could you safely say that there really is no First Amendment pretty much around the world like we have?
Like ours, no. The closest one obviously comes from England, where they have freedom of the press, but they also have more strict, they have lower bars for libel and things like that. But Canada has no First Amendment. As a matter of fact, they have the opposite. They have something called the Human Rights Commission, which gets to decide whether what you said was hurtful to someone, and you can go to jail. They can recommend that you go to jail.
Unless it's a politician being hurtful.
The famous case of a comedian named Mike Ward, who during one of his shows, he was being heckled by a bunch of lesbians. And he just cut loose with a whole bunch of lesbian jokes at them to shut them up. And he had to flee Canada. He could not go back home because they hit him with so many fines that he would go bankrupt. So he just said, it's cheaper for me to just pack up my family and leave. And
government run amok.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, right? So Canada has the opposite of the First Amendment. So when
how does this remind you of Peterson then?
Because Peterson stood on principle, right? He didn't bring religion or anything into it because, much like myself, I think religion is is a red herring here. It's it's a cop-out logical argument against it. What Peterson said is the following: that student gets to decide how I can refer to them by name, right? So if a biological male walked up to him and said, "My name is Mary," Peterson said, "I'll call him Mary," because he gets to decide what his name is, right? But they don't get to decide what my use of language is for things that are in the common dictionary. So you couldn't decide what he or she meant, right? Like,
right. But what about
language?
I don't want to discuss it, but what about a word like gay? We're in the 19 teens.
Right. Yeah,
gay,
exactly. Right.
Or queer, or fag. Fag is even in Britain still used as a cigarette.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a cigarette. So his point was, never in the history of English common law has the government compelled specific speech on the general populace. And he went to bat for that. He risked his career over that. He eventually ended up leaving McGill University, I think, over it, or some time around then, because he said, I refuse to do this. Like, this is ridiculous, and it's logically unsound, and so on and so forth. This case is reminiscent of it, except for the fact that here, because we do have a First Amendment, and people forget the First Amendment is a lot of different concepts rolled into one amendment, right? There's the freedom of religion, there's freedom of speech, there's freedom of assembly, right? All three of those things, among others, are in the First Amendment, right?
And some universities don't even teach that anymore.
Right.
When you take that history class.
Right.
Or high schools, rather.
So this this professor, I think, took the easy way out. The easy way out is, well, my religion says I can't call a man she. And as far as I know, there's no religious principle like that. They're just making it religiously easy. They're
John, stop. This is, how the world works. This guy went into the office. I believe this man, in terms of his religious beliefs or all that, but I believe the lawyer looked at it like you and goes, what's the best way to win this case? Well, by God, that religious angle works.
Yeah, exactly.
To me, his religion was irrelevant, or his belief systems and why he was doing it was not relevant to the lawyer. The lawyer just had to find a way out. And this actual case, the guy's angle was the correct one to use. So I guess I see your point, and my issue with that point is, you can take the 10 Commandments, you can take various aspects that religion has been built on. You can actually separate that, because those commandments are about how to treat one another. They're not really, I don't think that's religious based, but the problem is perception and how you're raised and how you're brought up. So this case politically became one based not only off religion, but the First Amendment. And see, the problem is, in court, we need lawyers and judges with your mentality, but that's not how life works. So it's hard to convince anybody when you're trying to change or tell them their core belief is wrong. Now, somebody who's getting ready to face death row may be willing to go, let me rethink that angle we're going to take, because I truly believe all these people in prison, in the cop shows, I don't believe their stories, they're going to take the easiest way out.
Yeah. And I don't disagree with you that at the end of the day, a good lawyer's only responsibility is to act in the best interest of their client. They're not like people like me who sit around and pontificate all day. We can sit around and do that. I get it. But as a matter of just a thought exercise, there's a lot of competing things. Like, first of all, that guy should not have to address anyone by their preferred pronouns.
No, exactly. But see, that's just it, though. Well, we do. I guess what I'm trying to get at you is, how does Big John come to a compromise with your core libertarian belief there of how you view it with the realities of life? Do you walk away frustrated, or do you take it case by case? I mean,
no, I think what this guy did was perfect. Honestly, probably if I was in his position, I probably would have done the same thing, which is I wouldn't have argued.
Orthodox. It's like,
no. What I meant was I'd probably do what he did, which was like, here's a solution that satisfies, here's a remedy that I'm proposing. And that remedy is, instead of saying Mr. Georgopoulos or Mr. Del Pilar, I'll say Georgopoulos or Del Pilar, because that's the name you told me to address you by. So I'm just taking away the pronoun, which is fair
You're saying
enough.
his compromise was fair, is what you're saying.
It's very fair. And by the way, if, in my opinion, and probably in the court's opinion, if now Jane Doe, which again belies a political position, right? Because by referring in the court papers to this person as Jane Doe, they are acknowledging that it's a woman, right? And that's what a lot of people just assume, right? Like, oh, call her Jane Doe. No, if you don't want to call him John Doe because of him being male, then don't do anything.
Yeah, and that was a political decision made by the district attorney.
Yeah, person X. That's it. You could have used that in the court papers and to maintain anonymity, right? But there's already that bias going on. So you have
and that's political, and that's my issue is people in powers of jailing somebody, things like that. To me, you can't be political. You got to follow the law to the detriment
I agree.
of whatever ideology. And just that example right there, by saying, "Oh yeah, we acknowledge," they're acknowledging her, but calling him Jane Doe. It's still a he. Scientifically and by law, it's a, well, I guess the law is changing. Seeing that to me is a problem with society.
That's another issue there, because.
Okay, no, I get it. So real quick, because I want to ask you some questions.
Yeah, sure.
The court ruled Shawnee State officials had violated his free speech rights when they took action. So instead of having a compromise, not only did this young man lose from being called a woman, he's also helped set precedent for future cases that hurt his beliefs. Yeah. So the school, 3 judges, the school failed to recognize this. I said that. The judges remanded back the case back down, as you stated. Damages were $400,000 to be paid for Meriwether. Odds are, based on the length of this case, that probably all went to his lawyer. You know. And now, when calling or addressing students, Meriwether has a right to use or avoid titles or pronouns. So in essence, I'm the teacher. I'm going to call you whatever the hell I want.
Yeah, and again, like your point to common sense, right? That right doesn't, for example, extend to say, yeah, the asshole in the back. What's your question? Right. So we understand there's limitations around how you can address a student, right?
Well, self-imposed limitations in terms of how you want people to be treated.
Or policy of the now.
Right. No denigrating, no dehumanizing.
Now, here's something that is more subtle that I would like answered is, if the school hires you and the policy when they hire you is, you will address students in our university by their gender preferred pronouns.
Well, technically speaking, let's ignore the law right now, because that would be thrown out, as we saw with this case. But let's say it wasn't. So yeah, you're signing that contract to abide what the school does, how it does it, and you don't, you get your ass fired.
That's what I agree with you.
That's one reason people are so scared to become entrepreneurs, because everything's on them now to make every single decision.
Sure, and
that's kind of what drove me. There's a great book from the 80s called I can't remember the name of the book, but in the book, what he said is, go build your own ballpark, in reference to, you don't like the way I'm running my business as an employee, well then go build your own business. And John, I never forgot that, and that was always in the back of my head when I started KFL.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, look, in New York City, I could be mistaken about this, but I'm pretty sure it's the case. There are laws in municipal offices, in other words, when you work for the city, that you are not allowed to misgender anybody.
Right. Oh yeah, out here too. Right. Those laws, and they're all relatively new. But
now, I think those laws are horrible laws, because
some people have been fired over them already.
Right, because it's compelled speech, and I hate that shit. But here's the funny thing. The funny thing is, I would still defend the right of the government to fire people, because that is their policy.
You know, even FDR said federal unions are going to be America's worst nightmare. And they're just like a kickback pension job. Do your time. I never worked one per se, but I worked because the military, you work in a lot of places, and I did work at the VA. I was formed out a couple other civilian places, but Yeah, they're some of the laziest workers. There are some people dedicated to their jobs. Like I told you in the Navy, I can't remember how many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people I worked with. I was like on 6 commands in 6 years. I was the anomaly. I once jokingly said, "Man, just call me the angel of death," and they did. But the point being is, out of all those commands, and each command maybe had 200, 150, the 300, 400 people. So a lot of people I came across. Only 2 or 3 people when I left there, I was envious of them, not of their job, not of who they were, not of their lives. I was envious that they found their passion in life.
Right.
These are the guys, when there's a war, put them in charge. They're the guys who, when the bleep hit the fan, and I experienced that and saw it firsthand, and E4, who had as close to a photographic memory as possible, have a manual like that thick, and he knew exactly. And we had in the term in the military, we had broke dick, and we had nearly a Pueblo incident. So it was pretty bad. And he was literally leading the captain. The captain told the division, the watch officer. We were in general quarters, and the watch officer. After a while, it just, Captain, I don't need to talk to you. I need to talk to Petty Officer Fernald. That was his name, Fernald. And I'll never forget, John. I'm in E3 sitting there, and we all just looked up, because it was what you would call the proverbial slap in the face of that watch officer. In that one moment, he had been demeaned and reduced as nothing but obstacle. And that's because the captain wanted an immediate. We were drifting. It's not like the water, the current was like, okay, he's getting a report. Let's hold off a few seconds till he gets it. We were drifting, and it's just something to see in terms of that perspective. But real quick, the First Amendment guarantees Dr. Meriwether. The school has also agreed to rescind the letter. The school said it was an economic decision. I don't believe that this time. I think that was an excuse. These schools had the type of money to win that. But I think the school also saw a way out, meaning I think a lot of schools are pressured. They don't want to get canceled, even though if they had the backbone, they wouldn't. But I think this was also the school's way. Look, we lost this, but this solves this problem moving forward. We don't have to deal with any of this crap. It's the law, So, John, I want to ask you a few questions here. You've kind of answered some of them already, and you answered it. I believe you're stating the First Amendment was properly defended here, and we agree on that. But at what point does faith in the First Amendment compromise, which we kind of were touching on here in terms of how you're saying it's not really a religious issue as much as a clear First Amendment, but it was driven by faith. Do you think that this is what we're always going to see in terms of these battles, or do you think or hope we can eventually separate it?
Yeah, I think there's a bad trend that whenever, instead of standing on the principle of free speech, they're falling back on the principle of freedom of religion. So
is that because But is that because in the past, when you would infer your religion, it was kind of like that ended the argument? I think that's why they're falling back into it.
That's what happened in intellectual circles, but I think it's 2 reasons. One is religion now has become so nebulous that you can make any claim about a religion, right? Like I said,
oh no, you can. I've read some cases where, it could be a cult, could be anything. But if you can prove that is a religion that you practice and it's profound, you whatever, it could be right. It could be the Jeffrey Dahmer religion. But if you can prove that you're practicing all that, some courts will recognize it.
Just like the Scientologists, they got away with it too for years. But here's the funny thing.
Hey
Here's the thing. For example, that case in Colorado with the so-called gay baker.
The baker.
Right? Yeah. Now, here's the funny thing. As far as I know, the religion they were citing that was being violated on their part says, love your brother. Love thy brother as you love yourself, right? Nowhere in that Bible does it say, don't do business with gay people, okay?
Right. Does it talk about homosexuality?
I don't think it does, but...
It does. The Bible does. And my point, just to keep moving on, is you're right, but you're wrong, because the Bible is one of the worst books for either side to use as their example.
No,
it contradicts itself.
I agree with you, but the only things about homosexuality in the Bible is don't do it, right? It doesn't say don't help a homosexual.
And that's how I look at it. That's how my mom is a fundamentalist. So she has her views on homosexuality. But I've seen my mom help more homosexuals then a homosexual will help it because she never looked at him as a person.
Because she's probably more of a Christian than the Christians claiming that they shouldn't do this.
Now, I never heard her say it, but I'm sure in the back of her mind, she probably said, I'll pray for them. You know,
and that's fine. If you want to pray for someone, go ahead. But see, in that case as well, to me, the correct argument was, we have the right of free association. See, to me, that's the right that should have been defended. Like, not the freedom of religion, but it was much easier because people say they're persecuting me for my religion, right?
Well, John, I don't mean to disagree, but the lawyer saw it the way, I mean, I agree with you.
I don't disagree with you.
I'm going to go with the best way to win. In this case, it's one of those where
now here's the second part of this is, ever since like the Republicans have been like ceding the courts, most of the people they put in are not pure constitutionalists.
Oh no, they're not. No, trust me. See, I know that too.
Right. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is most of them are religious freaks. So
no, I don't think so. Just because religion has a strong presence, there are fundamentalists, and then there are people who just they go to church. You wouldn't know they go to church every Sunday or do it Sunday and Wednesday because they know how to separate it. But fundamentalists are a small core of conservatism, but just like the LGBT in America and in the Democratic Party, they have some of the loudest voices.
Yeah, and that could be
people fail to realize that,
and that could be the case. But let's face it, the you're violating my religious rights has become an argument that's taken more prominence as these judges, these conservative judges, have been winning more seats, especially on SCOTUS. So
I don't think so. I think it starts out like that, and then I think it goes to what you're saying. Those judges are looking at the actual base law. Like in here, the judge, at the end of the day, this is a poor example, I guess, for your case, what you're pushing. You need the final one where the judge said, okay, for religion, and ignored the law. And I haven't heard of one or seen one of that, but I'm not saying that they're not out there.
Right.
That's what you need to find to prop your case out. Real quick, John, before we move on, you've already answered, should we be forced to contradict our core beliefs? If you know what's required of the job going in and accept it, you're saying I'm putting my beliefs aside.
Right, exactly. I agree with that. I agree.
So what happened to free speech? Give me a second. What happened to free speech at the universities? Supposedly bastions for open discussions. And John, the second part of that question is this a lack of intellectual and ideological diversity at the university system, which is supposed to be free speech and discuss those issues?
Oh, absolutely. The American university system has been closed-minded for at least since the 60s.
Okay, so real quick, because we're running out of time here. What's it going to take in your eyes, not political, but in your heart, what's it going to take to break this and start teaching again so we don't have to import foreigners to work the high-tech jobs?
Well, I think those are separate issues, but to your first issue, I think the American university as a free speech sort of campus is lost. That's going to get lost for the next couple of decades, probably, because it's going to be a slow turnaround. You know, it's going to be that when all these old professors die off, you have to have intellectual conservatives, and I don't mean Trump conservatives. Or
actually, the best professor would be more of a libertarian.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Either conservative or libertarian professors who make it a point to become professors.
To teach both sides.
See, but the problem is that people of that mindset tend to be more business and entrepreneurial.
Doers, not teachers.
Yeah, they don't want to be teachers. So, like, I liken it to me and my sister. Okay. My sister is much smarter than I am. Okay. She's a lot smarter, but her life's work was to go into teaching. She wanted to teach children, young children, right? So she teaches grade school. She's not going to be rich ever in her life, right? Whereas an idiot like me said, I'm not going back to school. Once I got my degrees, I'm like, I'm gone. And I started businesses. I went to Wall Street, you know, and
I don't know, John, that mentality's gone. Have you seen the pensions of these teachers out here in California?
It's not as much as you I understand they're
high. It is.
No, but I mean, listen, when
hold on. Oh, no, no, no. I'm not going to let this one go. We got a janitor out here that was earning $300,000 after all his pension and all that. The
Yeah, but a
formulas and all.
janitor isn't teaching your kids,
Yeah.
right?
Well, that's just an example of one. The teachers are just as bad, earning six-figure salaries that keep increasing. We have like either 1.9 to a $3 trillion deficit when you count the pensions in California. But for some reason, I assume they carved out some law or some regulation. They don't have to put that into the bill. So I'm not arguing with you as much as that used to be the case with teaching. It doesn't pay, but oh no, that is.
Even if yes, but comparatively speaking, it doesn't pay anywhere near as the private.
No, but you're talking about the 110%, in the country. They're earning their money both before and after. Teachers are working class people, but they see pensions of executive pay, because it's the taxpayers. And it's not just teachers, it's the firefighters. Everybody loves the firefighters. The firefighters are killing us. So we just had to pay, they just passed another fire tax not too long ago. It was up on the bill. It may have been defeated. But they always put the money in the general fund, but when you track the money, it's always going to pensions.
Yeah, the cops too are the same way.
Yeah, cops too. See, so then all of a sudden we hate cops and firemen because we want to control how they live. No, I don't believe you should be earning a better living than me, a successful entrepreneur who's made it and actually sold a company. And I'm not better than anybody else. But I was stunned when my financial planner told me where in the percentage of the country I was. I was like, oh my God. I go, it doesn't take a lot of money to get there, does it? But my first thought was how poor the rest of America is. So my thought process, no, those working schmoes there shouldn't be funding an extravagant. Again, the compromise, but we're way off topic. Let's talk about money and let's talk about billions and trillions, John, what would you do with 44 billion in your back pocket you just wanted to burn?
Oh my God, I might buy myself a small country or something and run a libertarian utopia.
So in other words, you run a libertarian utopia for 6 months, 3 years, if you're lucky, before some outside force came in and conquered y'all.
I'd establish like Fredonius or something like that, Fredopolis or something like that.
So buying a tech giant wouldn't be part of the libertarian approach?
Well, yes, in some cases it would. And of course, we're talking about Elon Musk, who his offer, like very reminiscent of Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett has been known for decades. When he wants to buy a company, he makes one offer and that's it. Like he doesn't negotiate. Here's my best offer, take it or leave it. Musk kind of did the same thing.
He most definitely did it. And I wasn't sure whether to believe him. Real quick, John, I want to give a couple of shout outs here. A hat tip to philstar.com. Their great article provided the timeline. What does Musk want with Twitter? Check out his tweets for clues. And then techcrunch.com, the complete timeline of the Elon Musk Twitter saga. Let me run a couple of these points down for the people, then I'll ask your input there. So on April 4th, first came out, Musk bought 9.2% of Twitter. Now, to the average layman, I've seen this before. They think, oh, it's only 9.2%. They don't understand. You're talking billions here still,
And by far, he was the largest shareholder.
Right.
Including Jack Dorsey, who's the founder of Twitter. Plus, if you took all the board members put together.
Now you're talking individual shareholders.
Yeah, the individual shareholders, not institutional like hedge funds or mutual funds. But yeah, in terms of individual shareholders, by far, Musk was.
Right. So April 4th, or he bought 9.2%. April 5th, he was given a board seat. He was welcome.
Offered. He was
welcome. No, they came out. Yeah, so he was offered, right?
Yeah,
he given offered semantics in the sense it was his board seat. April 10th, he backed out of his planned board seat. He had a different plan. He'd buy the company outright and take it private. Now, my thought process on that, just to drive you in the right direction, brother Girthy John, is that he realized he would be hamstrung as a board member by, as what you said previously. You're coming on board. Here's our rules. Here's our regs. Here's what we can say, what we can't do. I think he realized that. I think he knew it from the get-go. They're going to hamstring me, and that's why I'm not going to take the board seat. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that initially he was met with some sort of enthusiasm by some factions within Twitter, but it was obvious. First of all, the board has certain restrictions. Like if you're a board member, you can't own more than 14.9%.
Right. That's the other thing. He was going to be limited.
Right. So if he wanted to buy like most of Twitter, he wouldn't be allowed to as a board seat. And I think that was part of the calculation that when they offered the board seat, it was a good PR move, but they knew he wouldn't take it.
Okay, John, though, the stock hit last year at some time. I looked it up. I want to say October, November, approximately, or May. I'm sorry. I want to say approximately a year ago, but I wouldn't put it in November. But sometime last year, I looked it up. I didn't write the date down, though. It did hit roughly $70, close to 70, not 70. He only paid $54 and 20 cents per share. But now it was tracking even lower than that. You were on Wall Street. The natural inclination is like, well, we're in bad times right now. We're going to good times. Let's wait for it to go up. So why did they take this offer and not hope for the company to go up? Or do you think the writing was on the wall? This company is not improving.
Yeah, it's not improving. I think everyone on Wall Street knew it, and it started to collapse prior to other tech companies. In other words, their dive wasn't an opportunity right now for Musk. I think he took advantage of the environment, but Twitter was starting to collapse on its own. For all its users, there's some key metrics. As many users as Twitter has, only 2% of them are active. And it's the same 2% over and over.
So they have about 350 million people. Are you good with math? What's 2% of that?
A lot less. A lot less, right? Because 10% would be 35 million. 5% would be 17.5 million, right? So you're already dwindling down, right?
Right.
So my point being is that they have a very engaged, loyal base, but it's not expanding. The other thing is they haven't been able to monetize it properly. And there's a lot of technical things that are wrong with Twitter. Like forever, should Twitter have an edit button? Like, I'm sure you and I are frustrated when we do our social media work. If we put a tweet out there that we have a spelling mistake or just some other factual error, you can't just go in and change it, right? Like you can with Facebook. You have to delete the whole thing and repost it, right?
Oh, yeah. I do that at least 2 or 3 times a day.
Right. So Musk, right. And Musk has experience. Like people forget, in addition to Tesla and SpaceX, he was one of the co-founders of PayPal. And think about how much we use PayPal, right? It's like
real quick, John. It's about 7 million people out of 300.
Okay, 7 million. I was getting there eventually with my math, but
that's not many people.
That's not many people compared to how many are registered, right? So there's a lot of dead accounts. There's a lot of bots and crap like that. But anyway, so Twitter was so. Could they have gotten more than 54.20 a share? Probably not.
So you think this was a good deal for them? Do you think that's why they agreed? I mean, it was literally a couple of day turnaround.
I think what was happening was there was a lot of I think there was a lot of popular surge for Musk, meaning that a lot of the Twitter users wanted Musk. And then I think also you had issues. For example, the new CEO, Pragwal, I forget his last name, that CEO has not had a good 3 years at the helm. Like the
has it been 3 years?
I think so. Wow. The founder of
well, hold on, John. What about this aspect? I read that he was positive that more people, that the potential of other 9.2% rich could, in terms of institutions, could come on board, that because what you're saying, the Musk movement was starting forward. Do you think the pressure of, hey, we're going to lose this battle if we go toe to toe with him here? And he actually had an offer, meaning he actually set up and got the offer done on paper to be able to go through with it. Do you think just all that movement and all that?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of I think there was a lot of PR jostling. So Twitter, you didn't mention, but Twitter also adopted a poison pill policy.
Oh, that was next. That was it. The shareholders would be able to buy more stock at low prices, effectively diluting the company and driving up the price of his bid. You see, people, John Smart, he knew where I was going.
So they had all that going on. And I actually, every so often, I'll watch CNBC Business Mornings, and Jim Cramer was on. And Cramer was saying, like, well, the Twitter board can't be seen as succumbing to Musk because they have a fiduciary obligation. This was before they agreed to it. They have a fiduciary obligation to get the best price they can or not sell if it's not in the best interest. I think the problem was once Musk laid out his plan for cash, right? Because as rich as Musk is, 44 billion in cash for him would have been very difficult to raise on his own. He would have had he would have had to sell off a lot of his other stock, Tesla, SpaceX, right?
And billionaires are like that. They have a lot of their wealth on paper versus in assets. You know,
right. That's a
gates and
big
all the rest of
mistake
it.
that a lot of socialists and leftists have. That if you're a billionaire, you've got $1 billion bills somewhere. Like
In
AOC,
fact,
AOC says this nonsense all the time, and
but in
it's
fact,
like,
John, your favorite rube, as you like to call him, actually went bankrupt in one case because he had to file for bankruptcy because he was cash insolvent. That was Trump.
oh, he's done it lots of times. He's filed for
This was one of the big ones. It was a lot of money. It was like he had to file bankruptcy because it's not that he wasn't a billionaire still. He had all the assets. He did not have the cash flow to pay all the debtors.
Right.
So we say debtors.
Yeah. So once Musk, though, said, here's my plan for getting the cash, and it could be like getting loans from banks, borrowing against his own stock, whatever. Once he had that plan for here's the 44 billion, now it's what you might call a bona fide offer. So the board now has a bona fide offer. And if the board is doing their fiduciary duty, they're saying, look, we're at the time they were south of $50 a share. They had gone as low as 44 in the past couple.
Right. In fact, this whole month drove the stock price up. Every time Musk would say something, we would drive it up. And it was Morgan Stanley and Bank of America. Do you think the fact that that's what I meant by it's on paper? We got it done on paper.
It's bona fide, yes.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. This is an actual offer. It's a bona fide offer.
Yeah, because when you get into high finance, there's so many interesting things. For example, one of the major players in this sort of M&A type of thing is JP Morgan Chase. They're the biggest bank in the US. And Elon Musk is like mortal enemies with JP Morgan Chase. Like, I don't know, they've had beef in the past. So they weren't going to help him, right? So now the question is, if the biggest bank in the country isn't going to help you, where are you going to go for this sort of thing? And that's why he had to stitch together like Morgan Stanley, Bank of America. I don't know what kind of terms he got. I don't know what, I don't know the details, but apparently he did put together a good offer. So now Twitter, legally, the board has to decide, is this in the best interest of our shareholders?
Right.
Corporations have one legal responsibility, not
money.
One, the best interests of your shareholder.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of times people say, well, why didn't this company feed the poor? Their job isn't to feed the poor. Their job is to make more money, more value for their shareholders legally. That's the only thing they have to do, right? So Elon Musk made an offer. They had to accept it, I think. They did. Now the question is, will they keep it public or take it private?
I think it's already going private.
And that was resolved almost immediately. He's taking it private.
And John, this is a great lesson here because John and I talk about this all the time. For people that don't know, I approached John to work together, and I said, John, I can be tough to work with because it's not that I'm driven. It's a curse sometimes. It really is because it's a bad habit. There's never an obstacle that is just an obstacle. And Elon Musk, in this case, the biggest bank who could have made it easy for him, told him to F off.
Right.
But instead of caving in and going, well, moving on to the next project, he found a way around it. And if you ever want to be an entrepreneur, because I know eventually some entrepreneurs are going to watch this, that is an example of determination and perseverance when the rest of the world is telling you you're not going to do this. The board is looking at you laughingly. Where's he going to get the money? And he did it. And to the audience, that is what separates great men from achieving greatness. And that there's a reason Elon Musk is he's also one. John will tell you I don't like silver spoon people because most of them, 99% of them, just live off daddy's trust, mama's trust, or whatever, and they blow through their money. Elon Musk came from a well-to-do, I don't know if it was wealthy, but well-off, rich family out of South Africa. So the optics are just bad and great for Democrats right now because you're seeing it play out. White racist man from South Africa, but
horrible reaction.
But he took what his father gave him and made something more of it. And to me, that's the American dream, John. John, I want to talk about other things. What do you think?
Throw in I agree with you. Throw in Jeff Bezos in that bunch. Yeah. He wasn't like dirt poor, right? He
Oh no,
was
no,
on Wall Street.
I
think.
agree. I agree. The thing, Amazon, what I was bummed out to discover, because I thought it was one of those in your garage type businesses, but he was a Wall Street guy. He had all that
No,
money
he did start Amazon out of his garage. There's
No, no,
those
no.
famous pictures.
He had backers. I was shocked to
Right,
see that because of that. But no, he had, dude, for that operation. When you think about it, he had to have massive financial backers. We're talking
absolutely.
warehouses of books.
Yeah.
It's one of those businesses where the inventory is gonna kill you. You know.
Well,
so real quick,
go ahead. No, I was going to say. So I agree with you. When you look at people like Musk and Bezos, and to a certain extent Bill Gates and guys like that, I've never understood the people who view them as villains. Like, I'm not talking about like that, what's his name, Kashkareli guy, the hedge fund bro,
right, John,
the farmer bro.
Why is that? Answer your own question.
Oh, it's jealousy. It's jealousy.
And that's part of it, but don't you think it's also tribalism now? You don't agree with me 100%, part of the enemy?
No, I don't.
But we're seeing it right now. He was the darling of leftists.
All right, let me
2 years ago.
I think it's economic tribalism. Because
no, I think it's ideological tribalism.
No, well,
yeah. When hold on, when he supported Yang, his run, Musk did early on, all the leftists were in love. All the Bernie bros were in love with him. Even a lot of Democrats, because Elon Musk. Now that he wants free speech, now they're turning. Now he's a white racist man from South Africa.
Well, exactly. Well, okay, there's some of that, but I think it's more driven by jealousy because, like, for example, and I'm not even restricting it necessarily to leftists, because, like, I laugh, because the right is all cheering him now. Like you said, at one point, he was willing to support Andrew Yang. For those that don't know,
they forget.
That guy's like a born again socialist Yang here in New York. Okay,
yeah.
What I'm saying is that, like, for the same liberals that are right now saying, oh, he endorses hate speech. No, listen, like, he's like Jordan Peterson. This guy's an intellectual. He just thinks it through and he goes, free speech is good. We need debate. And if that means that for me to get the best debate possible out of this platform, I have to take it private, that's what I'm going to do.
Oh, from that perspective, that's a great point, John. So we're doing this new venture because of our beliefs is what I came to you. But we also have talked about the pure business side of it, because they are two separate beasts. And you look at your dream that we were talking again about off camera, and when you see the synergy happen, that synergy is not going to be easy to do. But if you believe in it, you persevere, and you're not stupid, you can succeed. And I mean that by not being stupid. People always look at the Bill Gates, the Michael Odell's, the Gateway guy, what's his name? The cow guy. Remember the computers with all the cows?
I don't remember his name, but yeah, I know.
Yeah. But these are men that took calculated risks.
Yeah.
Odell did not leave his dorm room until he could no longer handle sales were overwhelming. Bill Gates did everything to give it to IBM or the company he was with before he got himself a hold of an accountant. No, everybody forgets accountant, Paul Allen, and they ran with it. But these were calculated risks they took, and so just always remember that, people. Your plan has got to be smart, sound, on paper, and it has to be calculated. It's like we were talking SEO, people, and I look at it very calculating, like there's an obstacle, but we're going to figure it out. But I'm digressing. But it's a very important point. And to give Big John his kudos, we'll talk about it again in a different podcast, but he's a fascinating computer wrestling story that's innovative. It just oozes entrepreneurialism. So John, a couple of comments in terms of why Musk wanted it. I have some nice comments here, but I'm going to read one, and then I'm pretty sure you'll agree, but why? Free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy. And Twitter is the digital town square where matters vital to the future of humanity are debated. He tweeted that. Now, that hit me. I don't want to say hit me profoundly, but it is a profound statement.
Yeah.
What he's saying is Twitter is to the United States of America what certain corners and squares were in the Roman Empire, where orators would sit there and just be screaming the news at.
Right.
I assume you agree with that. Do you think, one, that's his real reason for doing this? And two, if it is, can he succeed?
Yeah, I think it is his real reason for doing it. It's his 1A reason. His 1B reason, as it is with everything, is to make more money.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that, people.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Free speech, yes, I think he's a big believer in it. And also, see, you have to understand intellectuals, and I keep getting back to this, intellectuals view free speech to be more important than any other right they have, because to an intellectual, the ability to challenge beliefs, debate beliefs, even with people that you disagree with, because sometimes the guy who disagrees with you is the one who pushes you to discover even more cool stuff and to come up with new ideas, right? So, like, you don't get
An
anywhere.
intellectual
Yeah.
is like an entrepreneur for the mind, and you don't want the mind shackled. It has to have the freedom, because honestly, people, without what John is describing, we don't get the TV, the radio, the iPhone, the computer.
Yeah.
If you look at Soviet technology and Chinese technology, they have exponentially increased their countries technologically. How? Through the theft of American inventions, creativity, et cetera, and that's what John's referring to. And John, do you think, I'm digressing, but it's a very important point, going back to the universities, do you think it's that intellectualism that you're talking about that is being forced out of the universities because ideology?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's both sides. It doesn't matter what ideology.
Yeah, right? No, but we know what ideology it is. Look, I tend to be very tough on conservatives who all of a sudden become blind to their own censorships, right? So, for example, the people who are cheering Elon Musk right now, the very same conservatives, I guarantee you, in 2 months, if he opens it up and now you've truly got free speech, all the guys who are going to be on there grooming, talking about how transgenderism is awesome, supporting BLM, like all these things, that's free speech too. The Nazis, that's free speech too. You have to tolerate it.
How do you moderate? Because you can. Well, hold on. You said it yourself earlier with the professor. He shouldn't be calling her, "Hey, you dumb man," or "You do this or that." Yeah. There's modicum, and to me, a company is failing if they don't try moderation.
They can't.
No, hold on. To try to figure it out. But if you can't come up to a solution, then you've got to make some hard decisions. Do you let it go or do you shut it down? See, to me, everything is layered in a strategic plan and tactics to try to achieve moderation. In this instance, in another industry could be something else, but they're trying to achieve something. He hasn't spoken one word about it, so it doesn't matter what you or I think.
Actually, he has. He hasn't
said anything.
No, he has very
he hasn't said, "I am going to allow Nazis to have free reign on Twitter."
No. This is what he said. So basically, he said it will be a free speech platform, but we will follow the applicable laws of any land where Twitter is.
Right. Oh, I apologize. That's right. I read that today.
Yeah. So, for example, in Germany, speaking out about Nazis, being pro-Nazi is against the law. There's a law in Germany that says you can't bring up the Nazi party.
Or like selling Nazi memorabilia.
Or selling Nazi memorabilia in Germany. So eBay.
Oh, no, it's everywhere.
Oh, okay. Might be everywhere. Actually, I don't think it's illegal in the US. I just think it's that.
No, I think it
No, you can buy it. Like, you could buy Nazi era, like if someone sold an SS helmet, for example, you could buy that.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Nazi like actual gear and stuff. There's laws. I think I could be wrong. But I know they track people down that way and bust them.
Well, yeah, there's certainly watch lists based on that. But the point is that, like, what Elon Musk. So first of all, moderation is bad for two reasons. One, again, it flies in the face of free speech, because once you have moderation, you have to have a moderator.
Well, John, I think what it boils down to, agree with me or not here, give me your thoughts on it. What it boils down to is whoever's doing the moderating is going to do it from their ideological core.
Oh, yeah, that's the biggest
That's
problem.
Where the failure, the human nature of that is why it's doomed to fail.
Right. But William, there's a second problem that most people don't realize. On the internet, once you become a moderator, you become legally liable for the speech on your platform.
That's fairly new, I'd imagine.
Oops. What you dropped there? It's okay. Ghosts in the machine. But no, it's, for example,
my cannabis plan. Gotta go. No, I'm
for example, like the New York Times can't claim, well, they're just articles. We're not responsible for it. No, because they moderate their content, right? They moderate their writers. They become liable for what's written in the newspaper. Yeah. Twitter, if it has no moderation at all, they get a pass. They're just like, look, we are just the town square. Any idiot can come here and say whatever they want.
No, now, I think so. I agree that I agree because, and And the reason, because there's small factions on each side. One reason I stopped online gaming back in 2002, because I was a gamer my whole life growing up, is because the first person I heard was a young young white kid with the N-word. Then eventually I played with the black kid, and it was cracker this, cracker that, redneck this, redneck that.
Right.
And I just realized it's coming from both sides. And what was my option? To go run, create laws, go fight for something like a soccer mom would do?
Right.
No, I just chose not. I'm like, I'm not gonna deal with this. But the real scary part, John, was playing a game of it was a zombie game. God, I wish I could remember the title. You need to play it, people. And I'm playing online, and this kid jumps in. I didn't realize the game automatically went into multiplayer online mode. Yeah, I hadn't connected my game system to the internet yet. For years, I had never connected it, and then I did. And then this kid's coming on, and he's in my game, and he was a 9-year-old kid.
Oh my God. And you were probably yelling at him and stuff, right?
No. He was so nice. So he was trying to do some kind of trade. Everybody kept screwing over, because I guess in those games you have to drop your weapon, and then the other guy. So he would always drop his weapon, then pick it off, and then disappear off the screen. So right. But I just realized in that moment how it was so easy to manipulate him. So to me, it was like, this is a pedophile's wet dream. And that's when I didn't get angry at parents, but I'm like, God, you parents are clueless. You really don't know what your kids are doing. So that said, John, how does Twitter it's being pushed now. Leftists, I hate to say, and I'm not accusing them because I tend to be a conservatarian. It's because they are pushing grooming and pedophilia and all that type stuff, normalizing it. I've actually, my wife's a hairdresser. I've dealt a lot into I know a lot of gay individuals. I'm not saying I'm tight friends with them, but because of her world, we interact. And one of them told me that the thing that the kid, Milo Yiannopoulos or whatever, right. He was telling the truth. He was telling me, he goes, yeah, there's some part of the LGBTQ that these guys, he goes, we don't claim them. They're like the Bucks, the Buck guy from the Democrat guy. They seduce and they take
or pedophile priests, for example.
But the point is, pedophile priests. But there's a segment of humanity that wants to normalize this, I think. So how do you think? Because most of the world doesn't. But how does Twitter handle that?
Well, I'm a free speech absolutist. So I don't believe in restricting anyone's speech, anybody. Now,
so you know what the other side's going to say.
Yeah, and the other side is wrong, because what happens
is
because what happens is once you start to criminalize the speech, hate speech. First of all, again, put aside the moderation, put aside the liability. What do you create? You create an environment where these people are driven underground. So if you're really worried about grooming, you're really worried about pedophilia, you're really worried about your kids, what's worse? Having these people communicate with each other in the dark in code and you don't know what's going on? Or would you rather have them on Twitter where you can deal with them, you could try to have discussions, you could try to persuade them, you could try, first of all, look, it's a hard—
John, also the obvious. These cats can't stop, so that's where the FBI comes in. This is how they catch rings. People think they're safe under an umbrella here.
No, but
I'm not talking about people who just think about it. People who are in child trafficking.
Right.
San Diego's like number 2 child trafficking. Real quick, John, it appears you are correct. I am wrong. There's parts of France and Europe where it's illegal. I thought it was illegal in the U.S., but I guess
about the Nazi memorabilia.
Yeah.
Because I believe it or not, I've known people who used to order like authentic World War II Nazi pieces.
I know people like that from the military.
It's usually guns. They were military guys, and they used to order that stuff on eBay. eBay then had a company policy not to sell that stuff.
And it's a private company.
But it was still, but you could still go to like swap meets and probably pick them up, and it's not illegal.
Okay, one of Musk's enemies, the other billionaire you talked about, I don't know if it was this segment or last segment, states, or actually threw a tweet out there, in essence saying that China will China have leverage? Because, Tesla's in China, and literally China's a big component of Tesla, from manufacturing to other types of deals. And look, like you said, Musk is not like $240 billion rich in the bank. Who knows how many millions he has? We know he doesn't have 44 billion because he had to go pocket work to get that together. So do you think this is just Bezos, what was it, kind of like yanking the chain to create a little drama here?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that going on, because he had the same kind of beef with Gates at one point. Like, even among intellectual billionaires, or maybe especially among them, you're always going to have these little beefs going on. Like,
oh yeah, and for the record, for the world, for you guys out there, I guess Bezos and Musk don't really get along too well because I don't know if it's friendly or not, but they are competitors in the space race right now.
Yeah,
Bezos launched the big penis.
That's his claim in space thing. Yeah.
And listen, I heard the local female worker down the street go, "Damn, that's going to cost extra."
Yeah, right. But you know what's interesting is another thing people don't realize is you want more people like Musk, Gates, and Bezos who hate each other and are super competitive against each other, because that brings us the best products and services, because they have to outdo each other. Think about what government provides. Government, everybody works for the same thing. They all work in lockstep, and they're the most inefficient body in all of history.
The Soviet Union is a great example. They had some car in the 60s. It's like you were forced to buy that car. And if it started half the time in those brutal winters, they said you had a good model.
Oh, please listen. I have family members who work for the CIA, and they used to regale me with stories of where they would catch and what they would catch Russian spies stealing.
Like,
literally
Western
equipment, computer equipment that we threw away. They would go dumpster diving because in the Soviet Union, the old Soviet Union, they were the top technology you could get.
John,
it's crazy.
Everything from an old appliance to an old TV to a junker car, because they take it for the pieces. But the car I'm referring to is called the Trabant. There have been stories written about it. You know, like the Razzies had the movies and all in the car industry, and like the Trabant, and you were forced to buy it. And that's a great example of there's no ingenuity. Those scientists or engineers, whatever, were paid an X amount of dollars. They built what was the cheapest. Will it work? It'll drive all the time. Enough. Yeah.
Hey, listen, what's that old saying? If you were a kid of the 80s like I am, what was that old saying? What brought down the Iron Curtain? It wasn't bombs. It wasn't bullets.
It was Western capitalism.
It was.
McDonald's and
it was Levi jeans, Coca-Cola, and rock and roll music.
Yeah, that's right. John's right. Yeah.
Because those three things got the youth. And the youth said, listen, why are we wearing these wool pants that like are uncomfortable and itchy and shit? We've got these I had a college, very quick story. I had a college friend of mine went to the Soviet Union on one of those exchange programs. And he comes back with the biggest, heaviest, like Red Army field officer, like those coats that had the big fur collars and went all the way from head to toe. And we were like, John, where'd you get all this stuff from? He goes, I traded one pair of my ratty old Levi's, and these Red Army officers were trading their state-issued uniforms, hats, all of it, because he was a Soviet studies major. So for him, those were like, oh man, these are like things you can't get anywhere, right? He traded one pair of his Levi's with holes in them.
Oh yeah.
He was getting these things like heavy, and just it goes to show you that even the Red Army officers were like, I've known a lot of Red Army guys, believe it or not, who came to this country after the Iron Curtain.
Wow.
And one of them was a pilot.
Were they related to your a relative that had the only shotgun on the island who was a communist?
That was my father who told that story. Yeah. No, here, I worked with a guy on Wall Street, super genius. He's one of those guys that just like Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind. But when I finally got to know him, it turns out he was an Air Force captain in the Red Air Force.
Oh, wow.
And the funny part, he told me, he goes, one day he just got up and walked off the base and came to America.
From Germany?
From Russia, the Soviet Union.
No, man, where was he? I assume Germany?
No, I met him here in New York. I don't know what his path was, but he just he left the base in Russia. It just mixed in with all those, because he was Jewish, and that's when the Soviet Union was expelling Jews.
Gotcha.
So they were all coming to here, England, and this guy would tell me these stories. He goes, do you know my mother still gets my captain's check in the Soviet Union? Like they haven't figured out that he's been missing for 10 years at that point.
You know what? That's what happens when you get big bureaucracy. That crap happens.
I'm sure it happens here too, but it just goes to show you. I'd rather have Bezos and Musk like competing with each other because they hate each other's guts. And the next thing you know, we've got a colony on Mars because these two guys hated each other.
But see, John,
Meanwhile,
tell him. So tell the country, what are you talking about there? You're talking
competition.
capitalism.
Competition,
That is
baby.
capitalism how it's supposed to be work, not this crony capitalism
Right.
that's ingrained in us now.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't use the word capitalism anymore. I use the word free market because I think that's a better description.
It is, but free market has never existed.
Hey,
The
listen,
strongest has always taken advantage of the
but,
free
here,
market.
but very quickly, there's a concept by an Austrian economist named Joseph Schumpeter. And don't try to read him because it's the most dry economic tome you'll ever read. But one of those concepts is destructive capitalism. And what that means is that capitalism is always destroying what's in place to build up something better. And that's the process that moves society forward. So when you hear people say, man, we got to save Detroit because they're the American auto industry. We got to save them. We can't have these.
Fail.
Yeah. Let them fail. That's
right.
how capitalism works.
But see, John, that's my worry. The Industrial Revolution only started in the late 1800s, and we are less than 100 years into this, and we've made leaps technologically or exponentially technologically, and it's put asset-rich paper or I forget the term, but these big multi-billionaire companies, once they changed the gold standard, these companies have. It's a bit of a paper game is how I look at it from layman terms, but it's created this new elitist class, and this elitist class wants to dominate and control, whether through Facebook, whether through the government. And this is all new territory. This is human nature also destroying what works when left unfettered. But that's human nature from the dawn of civilization. That's why I'll always argue we don't have a free market. We never have. The strongest have, or those willing to compromise have been controlled by those willing not. China, Russia, stealing technology. China's a massive threat now. That's not, remember, they were brought into the WTO in the early 90s by Clinton. Clinton was being bought and paid for by China to help get China at WTO, and the naivety of the hope that, well, capitalism will help teach them and it'll overcome communism. And I was always thinking, no, they're going to take aspects of capitalism, which at the time as a kid I didn't realize was crony or crony capitalism, and combine it with their power they have to just amass more wealth within a small group, and then continually dominate in worse and worse ways, because we are now in an industrial world with weapons that can control the masses, So I don't think, John, in my heart, I'd love to have a free market system, but it's still a capitalistic system is the best term.
I don't disagree with you. It's just that.
Okay, let's move on. No, okay.
And I'll just wrap it up quickly because I think we're coming near the end, but
I do, but I got one more question on the social media. And okay, Trump's purchase of Twitter. John and I, people are doing some side things that we think you're going to love and like and enjoy. So we look at the news and all. So in looking at this news, I was looking at the other social media platforms. Parler, specifically Parler, Getter, and Gab. Gab, I believe, will survive. They left well before Trump got kicked off and all that, and they formed their own ecosystem. But Parler and Getter are a product of everything that happened over the last 4 or 5 years. And their base were people who were fleeing the censorship of Twitter.
Their base was, let's be direct, their base was basically Trump supporters.
Well, no, that's what people wrongly assume.
I'm saying Parler and Getter, not Gab.
Oh, not even them. It's grown since then because people want to make money, and there's ways to make money off them, and that's why they started. But in your defense, I can't argue that point as much as I want, because Getter, I think at one point they probably grown but had 8 million. Supposedly Parler had 12 million accounts. So you're right, in a sense, those could be Trump supporters. So anyway, what happens to those companies if Twitter truly goes back to what its original purpose was meant to be?
Look.
I'm sorry, we forgot to exclude the most obvious one, Truth Social.
Yeah, we excluded it because I think both of us kind of feel that's going nowhere. But here's the thing. I think they'll still be around. I think the weaker ones, of the three, I think I kind of agree with you. Parler is probably the weakest one. Technologically, it seems to be not as good as the other two. It doesn't seem to be resilient, all that stuff.
And people, John knows that partially from what I tell him. I'm on all the social media. I handle that, and Parler's dead. I mean, you go there.
It's a ghost town.
Yeah, somebody with 1 million followers will make a post. Some of the better retweets are like 50 or 100. You know,
you could tell it's the same people talking to each other, and that's all it is.
And I don't even think they're talking to you. I think it's just big accounts posting whatever just to stay relevant on that account.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, or it could be just like you said. It could be certain brands that just say, "Okay, this is on our list. We have to post."
So I guess it boils down to Truth Social and Getter, because we see Parler eventually fading.
And Gab. I think Gab is the
Gab has it. No, I exclude Gab because Gab has built its own ecosystem and its own base, its own followers. Right. Their base is fundamental. He's what I would call a conservatorian. His religious beliefs make him a fundamentalist. But if you look at that site, there's a lot of libertarian beliefs.
You're talking about Gab.
Yeah. That's why it's not that he wants the Nazis or things like that, or the Post or those people. He looks to us to self-police, because I've run across some of it. Mute, block, or whatever, you know, and it angers me because I'm like, see, y'all just feeding the other side. But the other side, I can point to quadruple the size. Why? Because they're not censored on Twitter, so it's easy to find. As a conservative Latino, that's kind of my world at times, so I can always easily point out the race hustlers, the supremacists, and those on that side.
Well, here's my take. I think Gab will be the strongest one of those alt sites. I think Truth Social will die just as soon as Trump gets convicted.
Okay, I'll get a question. We'll come back to it. Keep going.
But what I think the key is going to be, and this is where Musk, I think, will add even more value to Twitter. A lot of people don't realize the advertising on these sites is something called programmatic, meaning that people aren't placing ads on Twitter, right? They may buy ad space, but the physical ads are done entirely by computers, by artificial intelligence, and it's just computers bidding against each other for the best spots. And there's these
kind of like what Burst Media in my day used to do.
What was that?
Kind of like what Burst Media in my day.
Except it's, trust me, it's much more
right. It's expanded, but still the same concept, just expanded.
The first company that builds a truly good system where on a true free speech platform, advertisers don't have to worry about their brands being associated with accounts that they don't agree with. They're the ones that are going to win. So, because they're going to be the easiest to monetize. So for example, if you had complete free speech on Gab, which it pretty much is, if they came up with a way that said, hey, BLM, we can guarantee that your ads will never appear on anybody you consider to be right-wing or Nazis or whatever, or white supremacists or whatever. By the way, also, hey, you Trump supporters, we can guarantee that your ads will never be seen by Democrats, liberals, whatever, right?
And that's tough because, John, during political season, I get a lot of Democrat ads.
I do too. I still get texts for them, and I've never been a registered Democrat.
Elizabeth Warren contacted me personally on text.
Yeah. And the same thing.
Me and 80 million others.
Yeah. I get contacted by everybody but the libertarians, but
thus we know why you can't hold a par.
To me, that's the subtleness, right? Whoever comes up with that system best, that ties into these, they're called ad exchanges.
I understand that, John, but how does that tie into the actual building the user base out?
Monetization, baby.
Yeah, but you're talking about monetizing the user base. I'm talking about how does a Getter stay relevant with its users?
I think that is, since it's also called UGC, user generated content, on all these platforms, Facebook included, YouTube included, it's the one that gets the best content creators, right? Like if all of a sudden, do you
think somebody's going to go to Parler if let's say P?
No, Parler is dead. I'm
talking about Gab, Parler, any one of them. Just look at them all as equal right now. Do you think it's like Melania just signed a deal with Parler a few months ago, or an agreement of some kind? I don't see people flocking over there. But real quick, what about this take? Truth Social. To me, this is Truth Social has been a wreck. I had high hopes for it from a business perspective. Because honestly, I hate people who get up and run away and leave. I'm still on Twitter the most because that's where the battle's being fought. You know? But I think Trump has one card to play. and I think it'll fail, and I'll tell you why, and you'd agree with this. But Trump is it's like a magnet where 70, 80 million people followers on Twitter. He was still growing. You know, if he starts he says he's gonna start tweeting within the week. He's gonna start truthing within the week, to put it in his word. The truth of the matter is, I believe everybody will flock to a True Social account just to follow him. The news media, entertainers to hate on him. There's money to be made there, and all his fans and his haters who want to go hate and attack him personally. You know, the question is can he, because let's theoretically say he gets 40 million out of that 70 million, just tossing the number. Let's say 50 million, just toss the number now. Getter only has 8 million. Hell, so he can get 20 million, who'll probably be still leading all the conservatives. I think he could use that as a base to grow True Social. The problem is Trump doesn't like to put his own money into anything. That's why he licenses his name a lot. It's like, cut me the check. Once the check stops, you no longer get my license. And it seems to be that he's taking that type of approach with True Social, because it's been a train wreck. It's obvious there was no money put into having a system in place that could immediately scale, which is why we had these wait lists. It seems like they're doing everything on the cheap. And because of that is why I feel it will fail. But to my point is, I think Truth Social has that one card called Donald Trump, and everybody will flock there just to listen to his tweets. And from there, theoretically, he could grow a base. I just don't think he has enough care in the world to grow that base.
Yeah, look, you know what I think about Trump, but I'll try to be fair to him. Almost none of his business ventures succeed. Almost none.
Well, he makes a lot of money licensing his name.
No, but that's what I'm saying. But I'm talking about business ventures.
Yeah. But that is most of his business ventures.
Well, now it is, right? But think of anything he's tried, right? The USFL.
Oh yeah, there were 20. This is like, you're right. And I used to use those to rail against him when I was Ted Cruz reporter. So, but okay, hold on. But when you look at most of them, they're minimal. We're not talking stuff that could affect his bottom line.
No. But what I'm saying is that he doesn't have a good record for building a business.
Right, but John, most entrepreneurs don't. When you look at some of the successful ones, not the one lightning in a bottle. Again, I've done tons of research because I was an entrepreneur. I just want to know what made him tick. And most of them have a string. I don't want to say string, but that's how they describe it. I had a string of failures. I mean, the Starbucks guy his wife was supporting him and she was like pregnant 9 months.
No, I don't disagree with you, but the difference is that Trump hasn't had the success in any business that those guys have had. So people learn from their failures. He doesn't seem to, but that aside.
My final point on that is the reason I think you're wrong is if he's licensed a business for 3 years and has made millions and that business goes under, in his eyes, he was successful. He got 3 years worth out of his name before it went under. See, so I guess we're looking at these businesses in a different light.
You didn't ask me if Trump was good at making money for himself. You asked me if I think the business will succeed.
Fair enough.
And the business will not succeed because if Trump stays at the helm, it will not succeed. The odds, history is against him. The other problem is architecturally, it can't grow. We know it's based on an open source Mastodon product.
Anything can grow. It depends how much money you put into it.
No, but I'm saying, yes. And the point is, it's not built to grow right now, right? Because, like you said, they don't have a mobile app.
Well, they just
server
with a new server, and they said the wait list is going to go. I'm a layman. John handles all our tech stuff, people. But when Devin Nunes says we signed on with Amazon's, or not Amazon's, but Rumble servers or something like that, and the wait list has gone away or is going away, that tells me in layman terms they signed that deal. And part of it, sure, it's to another conservative company, but part of it also they're going to be able to scale now. I guess what I'm trying to say, John, is anything is possible. The problem is I think Trump. That's why I brought up the licensing. Trump doesn't care about the business succeeding, about how much money can he get out of it. And remember, this is part of some kind of conglomerate of companies. I don't know any of them, but True Social that he's going that got investors in, had a stock price already up high. It's dropping now, but to me, that's all Trump cares about: upping this value and then boom, selling.
No, I don't disagree with you. I think Trump will make money out of this. I don't think Truth Social's going.
So in essence, you're saying it's going to fail.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, yeah, no, I agree. It looks cool. I love the colors. I think Elon Musk is lying when he says it's a terrible name. It's actually a very creative app name, and the reason why is when you see True Social. Yeah, it's a Twitter-like platform. You hear True Social, it's already formulated the thought they want you to formulate. When you can have that in a title, that's 90% of the battle. Now you still have to make the business work. It's like the owner of FantasyFootball.com thought just having the URL, he'd have millions of sellers or buyers and traffic would be, and it wasn't, and it slowly died on the vine. Okay, let's go to our final topic here. We'll make it quick, and luckily it's a short topic. This is a topic that I call the dumbass, or it stays in the locker room. I haven't figured out a name for it, but this is a topic where somebody does something that just shut the bleep up, dude. It's kind of like a wife who's been lovers since high school with their boyfriend, and they marry him, have kids, starts telling the tale of his first time with her to the girls. It's just, honey, there's just some things you don't talk about. So that's what this is. Now, Dan Campbell, you want to tell us a little bit about Dan Campbell, or you want me to give the overview there, Big John?
You might as well go through it, because like I am almost talked out, believe it or not. We've been at this for almost 90 minutes.
Yeah. I think that first case kind of
I mean, it was good stuff. Don't get me wrong. I was excited to talk about it, but now Dan Campbell's a letdown.
Dan Campbell, 1999 third round pick by the New York Giants, played from 99 to 2009. The important stuff here is he was a coaching intern starting in 2010 with the Dolphins and was a tight ends coach 2011 to 2015. And as some of you know, most of you don't, Dan Campbell is the head coach of the Detroit Lions, and he's a loser over there right now, statistically speaking. I just don't understand some of the moves. But that said, he was talking about what teams will tolerate. Here's his quote. So teams, and John, we both know, when you're a winner, Ray Lewis, they're going to ignore a murder. When you're over the hill, who's the other Ravens?
An alleged murder.
Yes, I apologize, alleged murder. And when you're over the hill, who's the running back with the elevator? Ray Rice. Ray Rice. When you're an over the hill player, they'll throw you under the bus. So here's and Dan Campbell's talking about, how good a player is how long they'll tolerate. So here's his quote. He was a dynamic football player, but he came in every day just reeking of alcohol. He was probably on a bender for who knows how long, but God, he loved football. He showed up. He didn't have any MAs. That's missed assignments. And I assume missed assignments in football is on the field itself, covering the guy. He hustled nonstop. And it's like, you know what? You'll find a way to make that guy work. Not saying we want those guys, but he loved ball and he had success. And he's still playing today, by the way. So when I saw that, and I'm a running back, he was a tight end. Dan Campbell was a tight end. We don't know who the player is.
Was he talking about a running back?
We don't know who he was talking about, but he was a tight ends coach. But here's the issue I have. Certain things stay in the locker room. And because this is a story you tell when you're in your 80s, and 80% of the actors in this role are dead or senile. This guy is still active. He's first of all, my question is, did anybody bother to get him help and do what's right versus winning? And he's still playing in the league. So what other teams? And honestly, John, I've told you off camera some of the stories I've done politically that nobody picked, that the party doesn't like hearing and people don't really pick up on. So I've written articles on them. But this would not be hard. I can tell you, my company was seen as a media company, reporters. People thought I was a reporter at times. This is not a hard story to figure out who that player is. It really isn't. So you could be destroying a career where nobody stepped in to help him. So to me, this is one of those type of stories that, I'll be frank, guys, this is the no crass sailor me. Just shut the fuck up, Campbell. That's not a story you tell, because that guy needs help. And if you weren't providing help or looking as a tight ends coach and going to, hey, we got a problem. And this is one of those lines in the sand where, and I don't know about you, John, but we both not cross lines, and it's put us in the position in lives we are. And God bless us, we have no regrets. This is one of those lines in the sand. You get that guy help. Or to me, that if that guy goes out and kills somebody in a drunk driving accident, but you didn't get him help,
it might be on you. Yeah, it could be on you.
It's like, shut the fuck up or get him help. I mean, what are your thoughts? Those are my thoughts on it, and I apologize for the crassness, but that's how strongly I feel.
Yeah.
So this proves in my eyes what the NFL is willing to tolerate from an elite player if it helps his team win, sell tickets and merchandise.
Yeah, the elite look, that's been known for years, and we could bring up people. What Jimmy Johnson used to say, someone asked him after he fined someone for missing practice, he said, well, Emmitt Smith's missed practice, and he goes, yeah, but he's Emmitt Smith. What do you want me to do about it?
Parcells too. Parcells
with LT.
every way, but at Terry Taylor,
yeah, Lawrence Taylor. Yeah,
he knew he was coked up on Sunday.
Of course he did.
In fact, he probably liked it. It makes him meaner. I'm serious.
Yeah, look, it's not like it was a secret. They knew it. The guy couldn't stay awake in the meeting. It was like they knew what was going on. Look, what's the running back for Cleveland right now?
Oh yeah.
It's Chubb and who's the other guy?
Chubb, Nick Chubb. Is that his name?
No, the other, not Chubb, the other running back. Oh God, I can't remember his name now. He was with the Chiefs, and he got
Kareem Hunt or Kareem.
Yeah, Kareem Hunt.
But that's a worse example you could give because he was actually defending himself. That woman came out flailing. He just pow. He shouldn't have done that. But technically, by law, with the libertarian outlook, I'm not condoning it, people. I would not have done that. The woman was coming at him.
She might have been coming at him, but there's an appropriate response, but whatever.
Yes, I agree.
But the point was that everybody was outraged right up until the Browns needed a running back, and his old GM hired him. Right. Same thing with Watson. Everyone's outraged that. Now, again, it doesn't matter whether I think you should be outraged over Watson's behavior. The point is there is outrage over his behavior. So what did the Browns do? Not only did they hire him, they gave him the most money ever for a quarterback, and they guaranteed all of it. So it's not even like he suffered at all. It's almost like he profited even more. So that's been a pattern in the NFL. And to be fair, it's probably been a pattern in a lot of other sports.
It's been the pattern in life. I've seen
in life in general. Right, there's two sets of laws, right?
So, dude, I saw so many SEALs be given a pass for a lot of bad crap.
Right.
Not that they're bad people, but alcohol has always been a demon in the military.
Right. Right. Now is Campbell wrong for? Well, see,
Campbell's not wrong. He can say whatever he wants.
He can say what he wants, and again, he didn't name the player, and unless you're an insider. You're not going to know who that player is. I can
guarantee you I'm not an insider, but I could find out.
No, I'm saying most people won't, though.
Yeah. Oh, right? Yeah. You're right. They won't unless they have an ideological reason.
Yeah.
On both sides.
And even then, you wouldn't be 100% sure because you're assuming he's talking about a tight end. He could be talking about any.
Oh, no. I don't know who he's talking about. The thing is because he was a rotational coach. So he was a tight ends coach, but he also coached other positions too. I remember reading about it. I'm trying to think he was tight ends coach, and then with the Dolphins in 2015, he was an interim head coach. Right. So it could be, and this he's talking about he stayed there from 2011 to 2015 as a paid coach, and so it could be anybody, especially with the fact he was an interim.
Right. So the fact that it was still anonymous makes it a little bit better to me. But you're right. There was no reason to say something like you could have done the same thing by citing people we already know this situation to be true that were made public, like Ray Rice. Well, Ray Rice is the one they kicked out, but like Emmitt Smith, like Lawrence Taylor, like Deshaun Watson. These are public things, and he could have used those as examples if he wanted to bring this to the light. But I think this was also like he didn't care, right? It's sort of like
exactly. So, no, you're right. See, when I look at Dan Campbell, I'm like, dude, are you a joke or are you a head coach? Now, people are going to chastise me, but that's just the impression I've gotten from him and how he handles something. Yeah. I thought of that from Mike Vrabel early on, but that quickly went away when I saw what he was doing. John, I can tell you this. In every industry, there's certain no secrets where people in the industry know. So I'm sure that when he said the story, there are a lot of players, a lot of agents, a lot of coaches. They knew exactly what he was talking about.
Oh, sure.
Some of the things I can tell you about some female reporters I learned when I was covering the NFL, it's like, first of all, and it was depressing to me because, and I don't care what people say of it, I'm not one of these guys when you get the sailor talk or things talk with men. I'm like, oh, well, that's wrong. I'm like, it's a losing battle. That's who they are. There's a reason I'm not friends with a lot of people. But dude, some of the stories, some of these women
Right.
and the shacking up players or the rumors that go around, and some of the men and how they play the books in terms of reimbursements and how they write the stories. It's not hard to find these things out. It's like, Woodward and Bob Woodward, who was in Bernstein.
Yeah.
They just happen to be the guys that Deep Throat went to. It could have been anybody else. There are people in every industry that know a secret. So, John, look, this was a long episode, and I think we got into the heart of things. I don't want to say intellectually, but we tried to get a little bit deeper. And I always tell people, the story the outlook or the end point game is always easy. In the movie, who killed it? Was it the butler or was it the sister-in-law? Every story we know the ending, Musk or this court case, but it's fun how we got there, because how we got there is what shapes our culture and our ideology and our outlook in life. And as most people know, I have a dystopian outlook with the way our country's going. But that said, I thought it was a decent show, a little long. We got a pretty good one next time. We're going to finally dig into CNN Plus. We're digging into the Herschel Walker no show. And this is where I get in trouble with the Republican Party. It's why I call myself a conservatarian first, or a conservative Latino, because it's not all about the Republicans. And with that, John, I want to let everybody know, do not forget to go to sportsgrumblings.com, share our podcast. And read our stories. John has a fascinating story, a very good story on libertarianism, and I've got a very long piece in terms of how I went from a liberal to a conservatarian. And it's all good stuff. We're growing, and we look forward to seeing you guys next time. Any final words, Big John? Take us away.
Away.